Jim's first budget done and dusted.
No, it's not a real budget. That happens in May. This is a wedge budget. It's like a real budget.
It's not heavy.
How do you reckon he went?
If Jim Chalmers isn't Australia's next Prime Minister, I'll eat this clipboard.
I'll have to take that bet.
He's a very good performer, came across very trustworthy.
This is a responsible budget that is right for the times and readies us for the future.
But having said those nice things, a budget speech is pretty formulaic. First, you set a depressing backdrop. This was Jim this evening.
Through a devastating pandemic, through a succession of dangerous and damaging natural disasters, through global uncertainty and painful price rises.
And this was Josh Frydenberg last year.
The global pandemic is not over. Devastating floods have battered our communities. We live in uncertain times.
Then you acknowledged the have-a-go Aussie spirit.
Australians have demonstrated the best of our national character, resolute and resilient in hard times.
But Australia remains resilient. Australia remains strong.
You make the point that even though we're drowning in debt, we could have been more drowninger.
Now, our responsible decisions mean gross debt to GDP will be 37.3% in 22-23 and remain lower over the forward estimates compared to the pre-election forecasts.
Net debt as a share of our economy will peak at 33.1% at the 30th of June 2026, significantly lower than what was forecast last year.
And because we're drowning in debt, we need to cut spending. Though you never say cut spending, you say...
with a budget repair package...
repairing the budget.
And you always talk about the future.
It begins to build a better future.
Tonight, we look to the future.
The wedge budget is called Building a Better Future.
Handy.
You know, the good thing about the future is it's someone else's problem when you get there and haven't achieved anything.
Funny how budget speeches are always pretty similar.
Well, drawn from a pretty similar set of books and compiled by pretty similar Treasury officials. But you can spin similar statistics any way you want.
Australians just don't have enough to show for $1 trillion of debt. And gross debt as a share of GDP at its highest level in more than 70 years.
The largest and fastest improvement to the budget bottom line in over 70 years.
Jim was very keen to let us know things ain't looking great on the world economic front.
Need us to be responsible.
He said disaster 8 times. The only thing he said as often as that was this.
A crisis. Crisis
alert!
Every treasurer plays Chicken Little.
Yeah, and he was right to point out that Australia has been living through an age of disaster. Not just Albanese press conferences. We're now putting away money for disasters we haven't had because we know they're going to come.
Also invests up to $200 million a year in disaster prevention.
And if it's not a literal storm, it's an economic one.
We now confront the prospect of a third global downturn in a decade and a half.
It's a bit like we're on the SS Minnow.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip.
And we're seeking shelter here in Fortress Oz.
It recognises that our best defence against uncertainty around the world is responsible economic management here at home.
Aboard this tiny ship,
we're the Gilligan Island of the world economy.
the mate was a mighty sailing man.
Lucky for us, first mate Chalmers and his brave skipper Anthony Albanese are at the helm.
If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost.
So what's the plan to weather the storm?
We just follow the road to recovery. Our economic future is, amongst other things, in forestry and fishing. The centrepiece, if you can call it that, of this mini-budget is housing.
I am proud to announce that we have just struck a new national housing accord between governments, investors and industry. The ambition of this accord is big and it's bold. It's an aspiration to build 1 million new, well-located homes over 5 years from 2024.
Back the truck up. Where are we going to get 1 million houses from?
Not from the government, it's from the market, meaning they're hoping private business starts doing the thing they've steadfastly refused to do, which is build more houses, because the returns aren't there. The feds are spending $15 million on the National Housing and Affordability Council.
Now, we don't pretend that this accord solves every issue.
Or even one of them.
Nor do we pretend we can solve this problem completely overnight.
Or ever. The government wants to release more land, so more high-rise, which plays so well in Perth. We don't have to worry though, it's a housing policy based on an accord, ambition and aspiration.
That is never going to happen.
More affordable housing and a future made in Australia.
Sounds like we'll all be living in our RM Williams.
It's a privilege. It is. It's a privilege.
That's lovely to hear.
What's the news on tax?
3,800 words in his budget speech, and tellingly, none of them related to those Stage 3 tax cuts. But he did say this.
And nearly all of the tax upgrades over the forward estimates have been returned to the budget.
From the spin doctors who brought you efficiency dividends comes the new term tax upgrades.
Sounds great.
You're not paying more tax, you're paying an upgraded amount of tax.
So that's less debt than our predecessors, less debt but with more to show for it.
Exhibit A in this crime against arithmetic is page 6 of budget paper number 1. Gross debt will jump from $895 million this year to $1.159 billion in 2026. We'll be $260 million deeper in the red after the first term of the Albanese government.
Sorry.
And as a result of that, the fastest growing area of spending is debt repayment. When you're facing that kind of interest bill, you've got to get serious about
Budget repair package.
So rather than spend more money, you shift it around.
This budget invests more than $2.5 billion to put nurses back into nursing homes.
By taking them out of EDs.
We choose to pay for better hospitals and healthcare.
Including fictional ones like the Comprehensive Cancer Centre.
He did unleash the Razor Gang.
Our spending audit has helped identify $22 billion in savings over the next 4 years.
Cutbacks on consultants, legal, advertising and government travel. Although that budget was blown in elbows first 6 weeks. Looks like the skipper's stranded with the rest of us.
Here on Gilligan's Island.
I'm Ben Harvey. For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.